Welcome to the Dental School Guide podcast, your ultimate destination for all things dentistry. I'm Dr. Tanner Townsend, your guide through the complex world of dental education. Join us as we uncover the secrets of acing dental school admissions, navigating residency programs, and exploring career opportunities. Please share and enjoy. Real quick, just wanted to make all you pre-dental students out there aware of a resource. If you've ever been worried about getting into dental school or are wanting to get into that school of your dreams, then you definitely want to check out a program called Dental School Guide. In the program, we walk you through how to save money, time, and heartache when applying to dental school. There's so much fluff out there when it comes to resources for getting into school, and we are streamlining all of that. With our comprehensive digital course, expert mentorship, and personalized application review services, you'll have everything you need to stand out to admission committees. Take advantage of this amazing resource that will help you increase your chances of getting into dental school. You'll want to check out dentalschoolguide.com. Check it out. Welcome back to the Dental School Guide podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tanner Townsend, and today we have Dominique with us. And Dominique, she is just about to start school at the University of Oklahoma School of Dentistry. Welcome to the podcast, Dominique.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be on here, and thanks for having me on.
We are excited to hear from you and kind of just to hear your story. So Dominique recently got in, as we had just said, to the University of Oklahoma, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her journey of how she got there and just her experience in the application process along the way. So we're really excited to hear from her today. So Dominique, tell us a little bit just in general background about yourself.
Yes, so I am born and raised from Las Vegas, Nevada. I lived there from the ages of right when I was born up until 18, and then I actually went off to school at Oklahoma City University. And
Nice.
The reason why I moved to Oklahoma, which is everyone thinks that's really far. Why would you go from Nevada to Oklahoma? I actually got a cheer scholarship. So I cheered in college. And I cheered all 4 years of school and was very fortunate to be able to bring home a couple national championships along the way through my college career, which was very exciting. But I loved Oklahoma so much. I originally wanted to go to University of Oklahoma for undergrad, didn't end up getting in. And I think that's actually a funny part to my story too, and the reason why things work out the way they do, because I ended up sending in the wrong and unedited essay into my college application and wondered why I was getting into all these other schools, like other D1, like NCAA schools. And I was like, this isn't making any sense. Did not get accepted to OU of all places. So it was one of those moments where I was like, you know what, this is meant to be. I had never heard of Oklahoma City University before, and being a cheerleader, it's a pretty well-known thing that cheer scholarships are not really a thing. It's just not talked about a lot. There aren't many schools that have the funding provided for that sport specifically. Most schools run their cheer programs under the marketing department. So I ended up receiving an email from my coach from OCU. She was saying they had scholarship opportunities, and I just could not believe it. I thought all my dreams were coming true because I wanted to cheer in college and was very fortunate to be able to cheer here in Oklahoma, which is where I currently reside right now. So I've stayed out here since graduating from school. I graduated in 2019 with my degree in cell and molecular biology. I also got minors in chemistry and Spanish. And I say that because I feel like it's pretty common amongst the dental community to have some sort of minor. I feel like most of the students you're competing with usually have one. So it's not a bad idea. I know for my school specifically, I was like 2 classes away from getting a minor in chemistry. I had already declared a minor in Spanish, but I thought, why not add more to my plate? I'm already busy enough. Let's just go ahead and get the second minor too. So after I graduated, my story in undergrad is quite hectic, to say the least. Being a student athlete is quite the feat and victory once you finally finish school and get your degree. I had the longest nights staying up, studying, early mornings. I would wake up at 4:30, 5 o'clock every single day for practice, just about. And doing that, plus being a science major, you're studying all night long regardless. So it was very much of a time management game that I had to play. But my first year of school, I unfortunately did not receive the help I really needed to get enrolled into my major classes. I never declared a major until after my what was it, second semester of freshman year. So I had to jam pack an entire major into 3 years of school to graduate in 4. So it was very difficult. My senior year, I had 17 hours both semesters, and my second
Ooh.
semester was the hardest one. Plus, it was our competition season at the same time. So it was not
Ooh.
easy. I look back and think, I don't know how I did it, but somehow I did. And it definitely, for me, seeing that I'm going to be starting school now, the journey's never going to be easy. So I'm honestly thankful that I had to go through those hard times, because I feel like it's only going to prepare me, that much more for what's to come with dental school, because I definitely know that's not going to be easy. But I am excited to say I'm not going to be in any athletics, and I can solely focus on school, which is something I've truly never been able to do the entire time I've been in school from elementary up, because I did competitive gymnastics growing up too. So I'm excited to only focus on school. But after I graduated later that year, September of 2019, I ended up getting my first big girl job at a dental office. Started there as an
Nice.
office receptionist and was given advice early on, no matter what you do, find your way into a dental office, whether it's mopping their floors, doing sterile, no matter what it is, being the office receptionist, finding your way into an office is going to be that much greater for you to put on your application, because they want to see your passion no matter what it is in the dental office. So I was lucky that I got to start there as an office receptionist, worked my way into the back after COVID. Actually, I was let go. I know a lot of people in the dental world experience that. So I was out of a job for a while, but came back and then was able to work in the back as a dental assistant. So I've been working as a dental assistant since 2020. And it's been amazing. I've had the most incredible mentorship with the doctor I work with. She actually attended University of Oklahoma as well for dental school. And it's been really cool just to have her mentorship, and also stories from her time in school, and just getting, figure out what it's going to be like, even though it was years back that she went to school. But it is really cool to have that person who relates and can understand your journey, because unfortunately, there's just not a lot of people who do. If you're not around that type of community. So I was very grateful for that. But yeah, I love Oklahoma, and I know we'll get into a little bit more about school, but I do just want to preface, OU is actually the only school I applied to. So I know
Really?
that is, yeah, it is not recommended
Whoa.
by most, but I knew what I
You went all
wanted,
chips
and
in on Oklahoma. I'm impressed.
I did, yes.
Okay.
And originally, that's not what I was planning on doing, but after applying multiple times, the last couple times I was like, this is what I want. It's gonna happen. I know it will. I believe this. And yeah, I threw everything into OU, and thank goodness it worked out okay.
Wow, you manifested that into reality. I'm impressed. That is awesome. Okay,
Yes.
so it sounds like you had a bunch of people just in your corner, especially those last couple of years in the office you worked at. I bet they're super proud of you that
Yes, they
you're going to
are.
Oklahoma. So that is super
Mhm.
cool. Okay, well, sounds like you have tons of experience. Your time management skills are probably going to be way ahead of the curve for dental school, which is awesome. In terms of your undergrad experience, how it was probably jam-packed, like you had just said, really challenging, I'm assuming, to get everything in. Did you apply right after you graduated to dental school? Or when did you start applying to dental school?
Yes, so I took my DAT the summer before senior year. I feel like that's a
Okay.
pretty typical time to take it, but I knew myself personally with athletics and school, I was not able to study during the school year. My spring
Uh-huh.
semesters just weighed a lot heavier than what my fall semesters were, and I wasn't going to be the person taking a DAT over Christmas break. I needed my time away because it was very little that
Yeah.
I did have. So I took my DAT, studied full time all summer long, and applied that August of 2018. So that was my first time applying, was in August of 2018.
Okay. And if you don't mind sharing, what at that point in time, what was your DAT score and what was your GPA at and things like that?
Yes. Don't know specifically where my GPA was at. I believe it stayed pretty consistent over my last 3 years. So I am not an average applicant. I am very much below average. And I want to say that because I know there are many students out there who may feel this way, that they have low stats, they have low GPA, that they can't get into school, but your application is so much more than your grades and your DAT score.
Yep.
My first DAT, which I did take it again, but I made a 16 on my first DAT. And I'm pretty sure my GPA was somewhere around a 3.4, but my science was much lower. I applied the very first time. I think my science was around like a 2.9, 3.0. And I ended up finishing school with a 3.4 GPA and a 2.89 science.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so that you've had quite the journey in terms of stats and getting there. So you studied full time that first time for the DAT. What happened with applying the second cycle? So did you get any interviews that first cycle?
No, I did not get any interviews. And my first time applying, my family was still living in Las Vegas. So I planned to apply to UNLV, University of Colorado, and then OU. I know at the time, University of Colorado and OU's curriculum was very similar. So I was leaning towards going to a school that had a similar curriculum to that and then applying to UNLV because my family was still in Las Vegas. But I didn't end up sending in any further applications for Colorado or UNLV, how poorly
They are
figuring it all out on my own, really. So the second time I took my DAT was the next year. So I truly have a crazy story. It's kind of one of those buckle up moments because you won't believe everything that's happened along the way. But I was preparing to take the DAT again. I was back in the office because this was after COVID. I didn't get any interviews, got rejected the first time from OU. And luckily, their emails that they send out to you after rejection say, after February, you can schedule a meeting with us. We'd love to discuss your application, what you can do better in the future, which I truly appreciated. Not all schools do that. And any sort of advice I was so grateful for because, like I said, it's just a very lonesome journey in a way trying to figure it out on your own. So I ended up applying to take the DAT again after, let me back up because that's not true. It was the next year after that. My last year of undergrad, due to the schedule I had with cheer and school, I made a couple D's in my classes. It was a very rough semester. Like I said, I would run from practice at like 7:50, run to my 8 a.m. Biochem class 2 times a week. Every single day in that class, we had a quiz. And being up since 5:30, I'd be in class, eat breakfast, and my body was just like shutting down. It was so hard for me to focus and stay awake. And I would have to go up to my professor and tell her, I am so sorry. I'm not bored in your class. I am just truthfully exhausted. Like my body just cannot stay awake. So it was really hard for me to understand all the material when you're half asleep every time you're in class. So I ended up going back to school for the 5th year to retake these courses. And I just want that to be a testament. It's okay if you retake classes. You have to retake the ones that you have to apply with, and it's okay. They may ask you questions about it, but truthfully, it was so worth it. And I honestly learned a lot more going back the second time and actually being awake for the classes I was in. So I retook biochem and I retook physics. And I was also given advice to take a human physiology course over the summer. So I graduated May, started class back up in June, took a summer class, and then went back to school starting in August, took 2 courses the first semester, 1 course the second semester. And I told the dean of admissions at the time at OU, I was like, I am not in a rush to take this DAT again. I am so tired. I have been going, because I took classes almost every summer semester through college as well. So it was just, there was hardly any stopping for me. And I was just ready to take a break. I didn't want to feel so burnt out to the point where my passion wasn't my passion anymore because I was resentful of the time that I was giving to it. So I said, let's pump the brakes. I'm going to take these classes because I need to do well in them. I want to raise my GPA as best I can. And I applied to take my DAT again in, what year was that? 2020. So I applied to take my test and ended up making a 17 the second time. So not much of a change. And it was not good enough for what OU's standards are, and most dental schools for that matter. So I reached out to the dean of admissions, asked him if it would be a good idea to apply, and he politely and honestly told me no, because I told him, I want you to be honest. It's an expense to apply to school, and if I can save myself the money from applying this time knowing I'm not going to be accepted, please just be honest with me. And that is what he told me. So I stepped back, took another gap year, continued to work at the dental office again. So this was my 3rd time taking the DAT, and unfortunately I made another 17. So this journey was going to continue on. And that time around, when I did go to take my test again, the week I was scheduled to take it, I actually ended up getting COVID and had to
Oh,
cancel the test.
okay.
It's just one thing after another with this story of mine, and had to cancel the test, had to try and call someone from the ADA, say, hey, I'm not able to take this. And this is when, the protocol for COVID was like 10 plus days of, um, you know,
Quarantine and yeah.
quarantine and everything. So it was just very different from what it is now. And it was just a very unfortunate situation. So it was another year that I was unable to apply because my DATs were usually scheduled like later in July so that I could study May, June, July, take the test. And at that point, it was just too late for me to schedule to take the test again to have my application in time. So I was unable to take the test until later that year, and I scheduled it in December. And then took a step back and realized, like, why am I rushing to take this test? I have until June of next year. I might as well take the time to study so that I can do better this next time. So that the third time when I made that 17, I had scheduled it and moved it out to February of the next year. Well, here in Oklahoma, our saying is stick around a while, the weather will change, like stick around 10 minutes, you never know what's going to happen.
Uh-huh.
All of a sudden, snowstorm was coming in, and when it snows here, it usually ices over. So I got a message the night I was preparing to take my DAT that my test was canceled for the next day due to weather. It was like one thing after another, and I was just so excited to be done taking this test because I'm prepared. I was ready to go. I had already moved it out. I already had to reapply for an extension on this exam, so it was like an extra $125 because apparently I was outside of my 6-month limit of scheduling the test the third time around, and test gets canceled. And the next day I was actually going to be flying to Florida with my doctor and our other assistant at the time for a CE course. And I was so pumped because I was like, I'm going to be able to relax on this time, while we're in Florida. And it was my birthday later on in the trip. And I was like, just so pumped to spend my birthday not worrying about this DAT. But unfortunately that didn't happen. So I finally received a message from the testing center to reschedule my test, took it in March. Like I said, third time made another 17. And at this point, I was like, I do not know what more to do. I feel like I am giving all of myself into studying. What is not clicking? And I ended up spending a pretty decent amount of money to get some tutoring and reached out to the student program coordinator at OU. We had a long meeting and she said they would open up the test for me a fourth time. So I did take my DAT 4 times total. So I just want this to be a message for those of you who feel like you just can't do it again. If this is what you want to do, you will go for it and you will be resilient and you'll have the grit and determination because I promise it is so worth it. And I ended up applying to take my DAT for the 4th time. And finally, this is not like a huge DAT score, but I made an 18. And
That's great.
for me, it felt like, oh my gosh, the most amazing victory ever. It was so nice to finally see a different number than a 16 and a 17 on that test. And I honestly did so much better in majority of my sections. However, the only one that I struggled in consistently was biology. It's just so much material and
It's a lot of different things that you have to know. It's almost unstudyable. Like there's so many things that you can't even predict that are going to be on there.
I know. And that's really how it was. And all my tests were so different. It was like, they say to study breadth and not depth. And even though they say that, the breadth wise is still over 3,000 different questions and all these topics that you can study on. So I ended up applying again. This was my second time in 2020, and I did not receive any interview and was rejected for a second time. So at this point, and I just felt very defeated. I felt like at least this time I would get an interview. I made, better scores. Everything was different. And that's not what happened. So that's everything with my second time applying. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a lot. And I think one of the things that you said kind of early on in your story there that I loved is that the dean that you reached out to said, hey, you're not competitive enough to apply. I think we see a lot of times that students want to just apply on a wing and a prayer. And sometimes that's not the best thing to do. The best thing to do is to wait and get better scores and not burn your money. Because you can burn a lot of money applying and have it not go your way. It's better to just prepare yourself and do better. So I love that you took the time to do that, and then you got the help and you asked the right questions to the right people. So walk us through this last cycle. This last cycle obviously was very different because you're now going to OU. Walk us through what that process was like to applying to just OU this time.
Yes. So this time applying to OU, similar to the second time, I had only applied to OU again the second time, but this third time around, it was one of those moments where I was waiting for an interview invite the second time, didn't get one, the rejection happened, and I was very familiar with, okay, once February rolls around, I can schedule that meeting and I can figure out what needs to be done from here, which is exactly what I did. And the biggest thing with dental school and really life in general, I've always had in the back of my head is squeaky wheel gets the grease. And you really just have to be willing to, even if you kind of feel like you're being a burden, ask the questions, because you're either going to ask and receive an answer. You're going to ask and maybe not get back exactly what you want to hear, but at least you're going to know. And the biggest thing is knowing what you need to do next. So I reached out to the student program coordinator again. We had a very long meeting. It was actually on my birthday of all days that I met with her. And I asked her, do I need to take the DAT again? I would take it 7 times if she said I needed to take it 7 times, because I knew how badly I wanted to get into dental school and how badly I want to become a dentist. And she ended up telling me that her and the new, at the time, director of admissions had discussed my application, looked through everything, and decided together I did not need to take the DAT again. And I told her this was the best birthday gift I could have ever received because to hear those words, I was like, finally, I do not have to take this test again. It's an exhausting test, and I understand for those of you who even struggle to take it a second time, but I was so happy to hear that. We did discuss going on the track of doing a master's, or if I needed to take upper level biology classes to help with the biology scores that I mentioned before. I consistently did more, lower scores in on my DAT. And I just realized that a master's program was going to be too much of an expense for me to pay for, and it would be another gap year that I'd have to take. So we agreed I would take another upper level biology class. And I ended up applying to take one starting in, I believe it was August. And 3 days before the class was going to start, the class got canceled. And yes, which was very shocking because you would think that those classes would just continue on, but I had no clue what was going on. I tried to go into my portal. It said I didn't have a class in there. I'd paid for the class. So I was trying to figure all of this out. And the class I had applied to take this class with said they had been trying to contact me and reached out, and I had no phone calls, no emails. I had nothing from them. And I had to decide that day if I wanted to be put into a week accelerated class. So missing 3 days is like
was like a week or two.
It's like a week or two. And I was like, okay, I'm at work right now. I was working at the time, so I was having to figure all of this out between seeing patients and it was just so crazy. And trying to get in touch with the student program coordinator, I called OU. I was trying to get a hold of her to figure out the best option, because the only other options I had found along the way were going to run into and past interview cycle. So I wasn't sure if that was even going to suffice in my circumstance, because I needed to up my GPA in some way or prove that I could do well in an upper level biology class. So I end up getting a hold of the receptionist there at the school, and I asked her for Heidi, and she wasn't at the school at the time. So I'm like, what am I going to do? And I all of a sudden get a phone call, and she answers the phone. She's like, hey girl, what's going on? Like all nonchalant, all chill. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. The world is crashing down. Everything is wrong right now. I need to figure out what to do. I ended up finding a class through, University of San Diego, their extended studies. And I'm so thankful. It was an amazing class. And I actually found out it was a graduate level course. So this was a much more accelerated biochemistry class I ended up taking. And the best part about it was I actually was able to dive into dentistry a little bit in the class. So I very much enjoyed it. It was a different spin on biochem than I had before. And I had taken biochem 4 times at this point, because I took it twice, both semesters in undergrad. And then I was taking it again, but it was so much different and dove more into the chemistry side of things. So and along the time that I was starting that class, actually like 7-ish days before that, I finally received my first interview invite at University of Oklahoma at the school. So that was very exciting. I ended up starting my class a couple days later, and then 4 days after I had my class starting, I had my first interview there. So I interviewed in September and then waited all the way up until December 15th for National Acceptance Day. And everyone was feeling super good about it. I was like, this is finally my chance. It's going to happen. And I was actually waitlisted. So
Oh.
the story, yep, just keeps getting better. So I really didn't know what was in store for me because the years prior, I know there were a couple people who interviewed with me the same day and they didn't end up getting in because the seats didn't open up. So I ended up, that was Friday the 15th. Saturday, I just kind of, left it where it was. Sunday, I immediately emailed the director of admissions and was like, I'm ready to meet with you. Can you meet tomorrow? And I was actually off work Monday, Tuesday. So I was trying to get in and talk to him as soon as I could. Because when you're in that situation and you're trying to figure everything out, your mind will wander wherever it wants to go. And
Uh-huh.
I wanted to shut down all of those thoughts, all of the questions as soon as I could. I ended up meeting with him on Monday and we
Did you
discussed,
meet with him in person or just over Zoom?
in person.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow. Okay.
thankfully I'm close to the school where I live, so he was willing to meet with me in person, and he did end up saying, you're one of those names I had a feeling I was going to hear from at the end of, acceptance day. So met with him. He did give me some good advice. It could be, I could be waiting to hear back all the way from the end of January 15th because they had that 30-day window to make their acceptances from January 15th all the way until May, 2 weeks before school starts. And I'm like, knowing my luck, it's going to be May. But
Yeah.
luckily, that is not what happened. I got a call on February 12th of this year, and I was accepted into the College of Dentistry at OU. So it has been quite the journey, and there are lots of little nitty-gritty things in between all of that, like having to apply to get my extension, like the extension waived, because after you take, which it used to be, they've changed it now, which is so nice for these students who do end up taking their DAT 4 times. You had to wait 12 months in between your third and fourth DAT, but now they've changed it in between your fourth and fifth. So a lot of different things along the way. It's been quite the journey.
Well, congratulations once again.
Thank you.
It's quite the story. So, what was that call like when you received it in February? Did you cry? I mean, I would have probably
Oh,
cried. Like,
yes. Oh, I did so much. And it was really ironic how it happened because I was able to come home for lunch that day. And I bring my lunch to work every single day. But for whatever reason, that day I was rushing in the morning and I had to come home for lunch to have lunch. And my mom was actually home. And all of a
oh,
sudden, I'm on FaceTime with my brother and I see this number come through. And because I had volunteered at OU over the summer, I knew what their first 3 digits of their phone number was. And so I looked at this number and I just could not believe my eyes. And I was like, that's weird. Okay, I was like, just a second. I told my brother, I was like, let me call you back. And I answered the phone, and it was the director of admissions who had called me. And he started going through stuff like, we're going to be sending you some emails. And I was like, okay, like kind of confused. And he's like, but before, we do any of that, then he just told me, congratulations, you've been accepted. And my mom was sitting right next to me the whole time. And I just was crying. She's screaming in the
oh,
background,
good.
all excited. And it was just so surreal. Even after I got off the phone, I kept looking at my mom. I was like, did that just happen? I was just so stunned. I was stoic, could not believe it.
Wow, that is so cool. So
Hmm.
after that happened, I mean, it's kind of a whirlwind. They'll send you a bunch of emails. What have you had to do since you got accepted to prepare to get going to school?
Yeah, so OU is really great about sending to-do lists, which for me, I'm very type A. I like my list. I like organized.
Yep.
So I have been loving that side of it. But they sent us each month, this is what needs to get done. One of the things that we needed to do was order our scrubs. So I know for OU, we wear scrubs only. We don't have to do business casual like for lecture and then scrubs for clinical. We wear scrubs for
Everything.
everything, which is really nice. But we had to order a specific color. So each of OU's years are a certain color, and that just rotates throughout every single year. So I ordered my scrubs, and then something else they want us to do is to collect teeth. So we're supposed to collect about 100 teeth from, wherever we can, offices around the area. And then some other things I'm trying to remember specifically, locating our immunization records. What else? trying to think. There's, just a list of things that we have to do, but we found more out about what was going to come moving forward because they didn't give us a ton. They didn't want to bog us down with a lot of things to do. Getting our student email set up, that was another one. But we had Welcome Day on April 5th. So earlier this month, we had a Welcome Day, and they kind of gave us more information as far as going through Complio, which is what we use for all of our records and everything, and going and telling us exactly, which immunizations we need and what things we'll have to do moving forward, like getting medical insurance, because at OU, I don't know if that's how it is at every dental school, but we do have to have insurance when we are when we are in school. So little things like that you kind of aren't thinking about because you've never been through the process before. And then just making sure you've signed up for FAFSA. That was one, sending in your FAFSA application. Because I know some people, even though they use, maybe their parents pay for school or they have private loans, whatever it is, most of the scholarships, specifically, I don't know if that's how it is at other places, but at OU, if you're applying for scholarships, you have to have a FAFSA application in regardless. So doing, just the things like that. And the FAFSA application for me, I had never filled one out before. So it did take me a little while to get that all done. But it's just those nitty gritty things that you don't really think are gonna, have to happen. And that's one thing I guess I didn't realize. You have so much stress before you get into school, and you just don't really realize what's going to come after you do get in. You're
after the fact, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So that's been a little bit of a shock, but I'm trying to enjoy my last, I don't know what it is now, like 35 days before school starts, and I'm, like not around for the next 4 years of my life.
Yeah. So that day is approaching and it's like 35 days away, have you found a place to live down in Norman and where you're going to be?
Yeah, so I actually live with my parents. Part of my story too, which the reason why I ended up staying in Oklahoma and not moving back to Las Vegas, my brother ended up getting a baseball scholarship at OCU. So he's in his senior year right now. And because both of us were out here, my parents were like, well, we're going to move back to Oklahoma because they actually got married out here, which is why I liked Oklahoma so much to begin with. But they moved back out here. So since they moved back, I've just lived with my parents. I've saved money as much as I can. I mean, especially me taking the DAT 4 times, having to pay for all the study materials and applying. It has been a, large investment, I will say. And it's just been nice. So I'm just going to live at home for now. And I'll actually be commuting to the city because OU's College of Dentistry is in the city, actually. So I live in Norman, but I'm going to be commuting to school. So
very cool. Yeah. All right. Well, it sounds like you've got a lot kind of coming up as dental school is approaching. So we're super excited for you. So as school approaches, we really would want to follow you in your journey as things go along, semester to semester, to kind of just give us updates along the way. So if you're open to doing that, we'd love to have you on for that and just kind of follow you as you go through your journey to become a dentist.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be super exciting. I know, like I said, this journey can feel very lonesome and you kind of wonder what's going to happen after the application stuff occurs. So I would definitely love to give insight and advice once that time comes.
Okay, awesome. Well, we're going to wrap it up for today's episode of the Dental School Guide podcast. Thank you, Dominique, once again for coming on today, and we will talk to you later.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
That's all for today's episode of the Dental School Guide podcast. We hope you've gained valuable insights and inspiration to fuel your journey into dentistry. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more expert advice, inside tips, and engaging discussions. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review. It would mean the world to us. Until next time, keep smiling, keep striving, and remember, your dental dreams are closer than you think. Thanks for tuning in to the Dental School Guide podcast.